Hi there, welcome back to another Mr. Carter Science Special. Today we're going to be looking at air pollution and in particular acid rain. As always, keep your eye out for the syllabus references as we go through this video. So before we start, it's important to understand that air is a mixture of gases. In fact, 78% of the air that you breathe into your lungs is actually nitrogen. Only 21% is oxygen, and then the remaining 1% or so is made up of noble gases and gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, and some of the pollutant gases that we're going to talk about today, like sulfur dioxides, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxides. So here we have 3 newspaper articles illustrating just how dangerous several of these gases can be. For example, carbon monoxide here has been implicated in the deaths of 4 people. Those people turned on a heater during a cold, chilly night while we were on holiday somewhere, and the heater wasn't well serviced and it produced the gas carbon monoxide, and there was so much carbon monoxide in the local atmosphere that it managed to kill them. The reason for this is that carbon monoxide bonds with the hemoglobin molecule irreversibly. So once a hemoglobin in your red blood cells is carrying carbon monoxide, it can never let it go until that red blood cell has been broken down. Now, if you breathe in too much carbon monoxide, then that means 100% or nearly 100% of your red blood cells and the hemoglobin they carry will be carrying carbon monoxide and not oxygen. That means no oxygen can get to your cells, they can't respire, they're going to die, and so you will die. So this is clearly not a very nice gas, carbon monoxide. One carbon with a single oxygen. Here we've got the Arctic Ocean getting warm, seals vanishing, icebergs melting, and this is all due to some greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane. Methane is CH4. And there is a separate video all about how greenhouse gases cause global warming and climate change. I'll put the link in the comments below. And today, one that we're really going to focus in on is acid rain. And here we're looking at gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. So let's look at those 3 in a little bit more detail. Here we've got a little picture here of Beijing, and you can see there are a number of tall buildings in the background. There's one there, there's one there, and none of these buildings are particularly far from the camera. In fact, they're all within 500 meters or so, but yet it is incredibly difficult to see these buildings on this picture due to the air quality, the low air quality, and the pollution that's in the atmosphere. And what's this pollution made out of? Well, largely the main gases that are causing issues here come from fossil fuels and the impurities within the fossil fuels when they're burnt. So yes, we're getting carbon dioxide and methane being produced. Carbon dioxide, of course, being produced from the car exhaust down here. Methane is produced in rice paddies. It's also produced from cows, from when they pass gas as you're growing cows. But also within the atmosphere here, you've also got sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxides, which will cause acid rain. There are also, of course, carbon monoxides, which will be poisonous, damaging, and preventing hemoglobin from transporting oxygen. So how exactly is acid rain caused? Well, pause the video right now, see if you can write yourself a 6-mark answer for this question, and then I'll give you some help with a little video and a gap fill to see how well you can improve, how much progress you've made in your answer. So here's a little video that I made a while ago to help explain how acid rain is caused. We begin with a lump of coal, which is mainly carbon based, but as you can see within that lump of coal there is actually a sulfur atom. In fact, sulfur is an impurity that's found in coal, and when coal's burnt in a power station or in factories, then that sulfur impurity combines with oxygen to make sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide then dissolves in water in clouds to form H2SO4 or sulfuric acid. When the clouds rain, they rain that sulfuric acid onto the trees, onto the lakes, the rivers, and cause a lot of ecological damage. They will destroy the leaves off trees. They'll cause the pH in lakes and rivers to fall and become highly acidic, and this can damage quite severely the ecosystems. Now, one of the worst parts about this is the fact that the sulfur dioxide emissions made by one particular country can often be blown far away to another particular country. So in the 1980s and 1990s, this was a big issue, that sulfur dioxide being made in the UK and Germany was blown over to Scandinavia, which didn't produce much acid rain itself, but had a big ecological effect, damaging the ecosystems of Scandinavia. However, we can have catalytic converters now in cars which will absorb sulfur dioxide, and in fact filters on the chimneys of factories and power stations again to absorb the sulfur dioxide and prevent acid rain from being formed. So thank you very much for watching that little video. I hope it helps you, and let's see how well you did. Here is the 6-mark answer. So just pause the video and write this down if you need a little bit of help, and then I'll tell you the full answer on the next slide. And here's the answers. So sulfur is an impurity found in coal, and when the coal is burnt in power stations, this sulfur turns into sulfur dioxide. The pollutant gas, or the pollution gas, is released into the atmosphere, where it dissolves in water in the clouds to form weak sulfuric acid, and this is the acid rain that can damage trees, forests, lakes and rivers. So up to 6 marks there. So let's look in more detail at these effects that acid rain can have. Acid rain will affect the pH of streams and rivers, and if that pH gets too low, becomes highly acidic, then the waterways will be unable to support life. The effects of acid rain, as I've already mentioned, are not often felt by the countries that produce the pollution. Instead, the sulfur dioxide made in factories and power stations and the nitrogen oxides made in cars, car exhausts, rise up into the atmosphere, and they're blown by the wind away from the dirtier countries towards new, cleaner countries. And the acid rain will then fall there and damage the ecosystems in a country that did not produce the pollution. So what can we do to reduce this air pollution, to reduce acid rain? So to prevent factories and power station, cars and vehicles producing these acidic gases, a range of different measures have been put in place by many countries, and unfortunately not all. These measures have reduced the levels of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. Firstly, selling of low sulfur petrol and diesel fuels, catalytic converters being placed in car exhausts to absorb these sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxides. Power station flue gases are cleaned by filters. Here you can see one on the top of the chimney here. This is actually quite useful because sulfuric acid is produced as a byproduct, and that sulfuric acid can then be kept and used in the chemical industries. And then the government sets strict emission levels and will fine any companies that breach these emission levels. These measures have reduced the levels of sulfur dioxide and acid rain in the atmosphere over the last 40 years. However, as I've already mentioned, not every country has such strict rules in place. There are a number of other types of pollution which can also cause problems, both for the environment and for humans themselves. For example, here we have a automated rickshaw or a Bajaj as they call it on the streets of Jakarta. This is an Indian-made vehicle, fortunately now banned. And one of the reasons it was banned is because of the large amount of pollution that you can see there coming out of the exhaust pipe. In particular, this smoke pollution increases something called particulates in the atmosphere. So any vehicles that are often burning diesel and their engines are not particularly efficient, they don't have enough oxygen in there to burn the entire diesel molecule, you will often get short hydrocarbon sections of the molecule coming out in the exhaust pipe. And these hydrocarbons are known as particulates, and they might be sort of 5 to 6 carbons long. And these are breathed in. These particulates, these small particles of unburnt fuel, are actually breathed in and can cause damage to the lungs and damage to the cardiovascular system and reducing people's health. And it's not just particulates produced by cars or in this case buses or Bajajs. It could be particulates produced by burning wood or burning oil or burning coal or burning peat, which are still quite popular in some rural areas of the world, including Ireland and Great Britain. The particulates in the atmosphere also reflect sunlight into the space, so less light will hit the surface of the Earth. And this is actually known as global dimming, and it can affect photosynthesis and the yields of crops produced in farms, which will affect food security in the world as well. Here we have a number of images of Beijing in China taken on the 15th of March 2021. So here we're looking at seeing a large amount of smog pollution in that city, and it's very important to try and recognize the problem and then try and put in place procedures to reduce the amount of gases, poisonous gases in the atmosphere, and so reduce the smog. So smoke, particulates, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, which contribute to smog. And smog is a combination of fog, condensed water, and these particulates and acidic gases. And many major cities in the world have problems with smog. Indian cities like Mumbai, Chinese cities such as Beijing, and many Southeast Asian cities, for example Jakarta or Manila, all have big issues with smog. In fact, within the 2008 Olympics in Beijing recognised the problem so much that they closed factories and reduced the numbers of cars on the road to reduce the concentration of these acids, these gases within the atmosphere, so that athletes could successfully compete in the Olympics that year without having major health concerns from the poor air quality. Just like with water pollution, there is a way of indirectly measuring the quality of the air and the amount of air pollution within the air by utilising indicator species. In this case, utilising a species called lichens, which are small moss-like organisms that are easily affected by sulfur dioxide levels. And different species can tolerate different concentrations of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. Lichens can be used to indicate therefore the sulfur dioxide concentration in the air. For example, here, as you can see, sort of around these three areas here, the heavily industrialized areas of Great Britain, we have this particular species of lichen present, and this species is highly tolerant of sulfur dioxide levels. So if you find this species in abundance, it suggests that the air quality is very low and that there's high levels of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. However, if you look at this species, which we find in the Highlands of Scotland, in the Lake District and the lowlands of Scotland, it's also found a lot in Wales and in Cornwall. This species of lichen is only found in areas which have incredibly clean air. It cannot tolerate sulfur dioxide levels and so indicates a very low level of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere and a very clean atmosphere. And then there are other species in between indicating slightly higher levels of sulfur dioxide or medium levels of sulfur dioxide depending upon where they are found. So at this point I'd like you to pause the video and just draw down this table. Can you name the sources of each of these pollutant gases in the atmosphere, and then briefly describe their effects? I'll show you the answers in a moment. So here are the answers. Sulfur dioxide is produced in power stations and factories, and nitrogen oxides are produced by cars, and the effect that they have is acid rain and damage in forests and lake ecosystems. Carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide is produced by respiration in living organisms. It's also produced in power stations and factories and cars and planes when fossil fuels are burnt. And methane is produced by cows and cattle, and also by rice paddies when rice is farmed. These two particular gases contribute to global warming, climate change, melting ice caps and glaciers, and rising sea levels. Carbon monoxide is produced by cars, poorly maintained heaters, and is also a constituent of cigarette smoke. And this will prevent hemoglobin from carrying oxygen around your body, and so carbon monoxide is classified as being poisonous. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please in the comments write down whatever you've learnt from this video, anything you would like in any other videos you'd like me to create for you to help support your GCSEs and IGCSE studies in biology. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe please, and please share the video around with other students in your schools or friends you may have in different schools. Thank you very much.